would like to ask the Honorable Minister of Finance, so then what is the solution when it comes to places or entities such as Robbie's Lottery, when it comes to like Stars Casinos, in terms of having the possibility of banking their money? Because right now it's considered money laundering and they don't have a bank account, they can't bank their money. What is the solution? Because I'm still waiting for the banking law that was initiated here by a former member of parliament. I believe it is here. I don't know what is going on with it. But Madam Chair, I mean, something got to give in terms of we giving businesses licenses and can't get a bank account. I would like to ask the Honorable Minister of Finance, what is your take on having a bank account possible for these entities, Madam Chair Lady?
Minister, in an attempt that you made to give answer to one of my questions to understand better the budget of Country St. Martin, to my concern is a very, very important matter for this country. You introduced all of a sudden a formula 2x4 that I didn't get, and then even you suggested to replace it for a formula 2x5 that made it more difficult for me to understand, seeing the fact that I do not have a financial background, but only a medical background. Can you please explain to me what you meant by introducing that formula, please? So I can understand better the answer to my question. Thank you.
But for what seems to be still in the exploratory stage, this is a 13.4 million guilders in the budget as a revenue. One, that too, the due diligence would have to include a national ordinance allowing the government to sell shares. Vervreemden van aandelen is something that would have to be done by national ordinance. So I think to put a 13.4 million guilders revenue for a matter that is still in the exploratory stage, I think is sort of a risk where the income is concerned. You mentioned, Minister, that dividends of the central bank used to be paid, has been paid in the past, and it will commence again. And so my question to that response is, when last did the central bank pay dividends? And yes, when last did they pay dividend, and why have they then stopped for the last couple of years and not pay? Why? In the elucidation to the budget, it is mentioned dividend public companies. That's what it's mentioned in the English version of the elucidation. Dividend public companies, 30 million guilders. And in 2023 budget, in quoting the 2023 budget, the amount mentioned is 26 million guilders. If you look at the budget itself, the 26 million guilders is actually license fee and not dividend as in the elucidation. So we're going to have to be very clear what we are talking about, because in the same elucidation, it speaks about increasing the license fee that is collected on behalf of the countries by the central bank. So let us make it clear what we're talking about. There is no dividend public companies for the amount of 30 million guilders as is in the elucidation. So I don't know whether it's something lost in translation or not. And then allow me to make it clear that the reason why matters like the tourist tax have been mentioned, and my question regarding that, about a 19 million guilders, was because the members of parliament at the time were going from the budget that we received, which was the one before the corrections were made after The Council of Advice made its recommendations. Let me make that very clear. So it's not as if I pulled something out of the sky, but rather we were going by the budget that Parliament received at the time, which in the meantime, as explained to the members of Parliament, we have received the correct version of the budget. Minister, you indicated in response to my question about the participation of government in entities on page 113, to be specific, that is correct. Am I therefore to understand that no government entity has presented their annual report since 2019? Because that is what that page alludes to. So is it, so since that page is correct and actual, has none of these companies presented an annual report since the year 2019?
Regarding the first question from MP Christophe Emmanuel regarding a current solution, as I mentioned before, the initiative banking law, I don't know if I mentioned here, I know we did had a discussion about it. We do have a banking law that we submitted already. It has been in Parliament from the Ministry of Finance through the Central Bank. It has been in Parliament already since January, which is makes it easier for a person to get a bank account. It's called a basic bank account law. It's already at Parliament already. And the next question was, I also will share a document. I did share it in our MP chat. I will also officially email it to Garrick as part of the report regarding the laws. And going into, that leads me into MP Gum's comments regarding the taxation on criminal activities. Yes, it doesn't mean that you won't be persecuted by the law. You still have to, as you mentioned, don't money launder, don't have any criminal activities, but the law will tax you if you do. And maybe I use the wrong words in terms of the Winair, MP Gums, in terms of exploration, because we are still exploring the possibilities in terms of the entities that are now part of the discussion. But I would say it's more along the lines of the closer to due diligence. We've hired in an entity to deal with, we've done already in 2020 the first evaluation of the company. Now we're doing a second one. We have an entity that's now working on the different agreements, looking at parties, dealing with Winair. We do have the support of Winair's board and management for this also. I want to make that also clear. And that also leads me into the question from MP Helga Martin regarding the budget. So you mentioned the tourist tax and Winair sales. The approval of the budget allows us to use the money. So let's say the sale happens, because you don't have it budgeted, you can accept the money, but you can't execute anything because you haven't budgeted for it. And that's why over the years, for example, we've even included monies that we've gotten, for example, from the trust fund. So if you look at prior years, trust fund income wasn't registered in the budget, but it was executed on behalf of government. So even though we have even though it's an in and out, so it doesn't come on our account, but we register it. So that's on why these items are in the budget. And then we have MP Marcelina regarding his question on, as I mentioned in the questions, MP Marcelina continued to mention in almost all of his questions on the outgoing government. And then the question was, what advice would the outgoing government have for the incoming government? And the answer then was, I'll break down my answer then, was if the incoming government needs support from the outgoing government, in particular the National Alliance faction, we are willing to support by helping support your coalition. That's what I mentioned. So going from 2x4 to 2x5. So that's to be very, very clear. Next was MP Yes, I partially answered the question on the shares of Veneer and the word exploratory. So I kind of clarified that. But MP Westcott Williams, some of your other answers. Oh, the last time we got dividend from the central bank was 600,000 guilders in 2019. The dividend stopped because no profit was made since then. Okay, so, and I think there are 3 more questions from you, MP, which I want to be very clear on. So those I prefer to either come back or put them in writing.
For all of life's twists, turns, and defining moments, RBC is a blend for all of you. SXM, your social and health insurance. SXM, your social and health insurances.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social and health insurances.
Madam Prime Minister, I do have a question, additional questions too. Does GB has a hindrance permit? And which government-owned companies have a hindrance permit and which do not? So specifically on GB, and then which government-owned companies have one and which do not. The second question is, in 2021, in August, Grid Market St. Martin and Island Resilience Partnership announced a public-private partnership dedicated to helping St. Martin transition to clean, resilient, and affordable energy. There was an MOU where St. Martin agreed to work with Grid Market and IRP. What is Grid Market's role currently now that GB has hired a new consultant company, Energy Nautics, for advice on renewable energy? And why has GB chosen another consultancy company while there is one already? So those are 2 questions.
The question of MP Roseberg, the questions on the hindrance permits, if you would permit us to submit that in writing, I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head. For GEBE and any other government-owned company, we can promise to send that in writing. As it relates to Grid Market, that is definitely one of the, so you see you get funding, you get assistance. We did get necessary assistance to be able to move forward after having had our staff take part in several conferences related to climate change, etc., and what we could do as small islands. So we did get some research funding, which we then procured Grid Market to carry out the research together with Island Resilience to assist St. Martin with our transition to renewable energy. As I've mentioned in previous meetings, but you were not here through you, Madam Chair, so I can update that, especially for the new members, that this is government's roadmap in which we have a energy policy work group, which includes GEBE, but over the years, the communication with GEBE has not been optimal. It's only in the last couple of years with the new management again that we are able to get more collaboration. But because GEBE, in the situation where they were, needed to revamp their complete strategic plan, and that was part of the trust fund project from the onset, however, not followed up on by previous management. This management decided to make use of that opportunity to get a full-fledged grid assessment done to be able to better mesh with what was already done. So what we had did not include the proper grid assessment of NVGB, and now that is also going to be taken along, but at the end of the day, the company has to do their due diligence and are doing that at this time.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances. For all of life's twists, turns, and defining moments, RBC is open for all of you.
The first question is being addressed that was presented by MP De Weaver. Please provide an overview of employee movement from 2020 until 2023. Information should be presented for the following years. And she lists 2022, 2023. Please see the table below of what the data that is being requested. And we tried our best to be able to provide this information as much as possible. The graphs are on the screen and before you. As the chair lady has asked, we're not going to go into the details because it's there for MPs to be able to peruse. I'll move on to the next slide. This also gives the FTA breakdown, vacancies budgeted for FTAs. There is one aspect that, There is one aspect that MP De Weaver is asking for as well, and that has to do with how many persons have, let's say, resigned versus those hired. We are busy still compiling that information and respectfully would like to present that information to MP De Weaver as per her chart provided, but I'd just like her to know that that is forthcoming. Madam Chair Lady, through you, I just addressed that part. Then we're moving on to MP Mingret. The Ministry of Justice and VROMI, what are the plans to mitigate the traffic jams? Please organize your answers by short, medium, and long-term goals. If there are plans, are they reflected in the budget? The reality is that for a small island like ours, the number of vehicles continue to increase steadily. Presently, there are no regulations in place limiting the number of vehicles permitted on the island relative to our geographical size. Addressing this issue requires thorough examination and collaboration between the Ministry of Justice, VROMI, and other stakeholders. At this juncture, we lack concrete information to provide specific details in response to your inquiry. Both the Ministry of Justice and VROMI need additional time to conduct a comprehensive analysis and engage in dialogue between the relevant ministries. Consequently, we are unable to provide a response to your question at this time. Was the option of stoplights in school districts considered as a solution as opposed to the use of traffic police officers? If not, why? This matter requires more dialogue between the respective ministries. As such, a response to the question posed at this time is not possible. Can Justice please expand on the Radix immigration software project, as it makes a significant part of the CapEx? Radix is a border management system introduced to administer passenger clearances and security checks for the Immigration and Border Protection Services. The option for choosing Gamma IT as Radix system is a direct result of minimal improvements received to the present stichting, which is SBER, for St. Martin. Although the system upgrading should coincide with improvements made for the Kingdom partners, St. Martin never witnessed these and carried a feel of coming out last. We are last for upgrades, last for services, last for attention, if ever received. The frustration of employees could not continue to fall on deaf ears, and personnel called for change and improvement with the system. The other islands do not face the complex passenger streams as St. Martin, but due to geographic proximity to the current service provider, they have received continued improvement to their system. Our unique knock-on effects of distance and desired throughput affects the BMS system performance. Radix, supported by automated border control system, is expedited processing of passengers, reducing the risk to passenger flow and passenger experience. This has a direct effect on country attractiveness, operational bottom lines, and resources utilization. The Radix software solution offers St. Martin two major advantages. One, full ownership and control over collected data with servers located on-site at designated border clearance points. No need to connect to a Curacao data center for processing transactions. And secondly, the ability to tailor a system to meet operational requirements. Radix is also deployed on Aruba and is in full operation for more than 30 years. On the rest of the Dutch Caribbean islands, the ACT-BMS is in use and the feelings are mixed. There is also currently an audit being done from the request of the YVO platform in the current BMS system that is being used. So there are several concerns that have been launched on the YVO platform about the BMS system that we have just stepped away from. Please elaborate on the procurement process and why the minister opted for this software. Is this software in collaboration with or can be linked to the existing software in the Dutch Caribbean, such as Curacao and Aruba? Can reports be shared with the aforementioned? St. Martin has entered into the purchase agreement with Gamma IT solely. Collaboration by way of information sharing with other territories within the Kingdom is arranged by the way of mutual agreements related to immigrants. The current protocol strengthening border control, or the VGT, National Ordinance on Police Information. Therein, initiatives are introduced to ensure collaboration between territories, and this exists. Can reports be shared with the aforementioned? Yes, the ability to initiate this exists. I move on through you, Madam Chair Lady, to questions from MP Grisha Heilega Martin. Border control system, where is this identified in the budget? What progress has been made in implementing the new border control system to provide better information and data intelligence on arrivals in St. Martin? How is such data currently being used? The first year of capital investments are designed to cover initial implementation expenses. The multi-annual operating budget will show how these expenses will be carried by the ministry strategically or structurally. What progress has been made in implementing the new border control system to provide better information and data intelligence on St. Martin? Currently, there is a server set up at the airport to handle transactions. Between March 26th and 27th of 2024, the project team from Radix will be on St. Martin to conduct a comprehensive assessment of implementation requirements across all border entry points. This evaluation will encompass law enforcement intelligence and administrative border processing outcomes. How is such data currently being used? The data that RADEX currently collects remains part of IBPS domain and will be analyzed in order to better steer border supervision.